Hello everyone, Tom here. Today is our third video in our Introduction to Programming series, and we're going to be talking about arrays and for loops. Arrays are a data structure that acts as a collection, or container of objects. Objects being stuff like simple integers or strings, or even other data structures like other arrays. So picture, if you will, a dresser, clothes dresser. You probably have one of these in your closet. And in each drawer, inside this dresser, there's going to be an object. You can say, hey, I want to go to the third drawer down, to get my underwear. Here you go. Underwear's inside here. So you go to the third drawer, you pull out your underwear, and voila, there it is. Well, arrays are just like that, except instead of your unmentionables, arrays contain abstract objects. So to define an array in Python, you use this syntax. First, you create a variable, just like anything else we've done, and then you use two of these brackets, an opening bracket and a closing bracket. And you see, it kind of even looks like a box, right? Well, you can populate an array, like you can put items into this array beforehand, or you can leave it empty. So to put items in the array beforehand, you just separate them by commas. So we can say, underwear in the first element, or pants in the second one, or shirts in the third, right? And so here we have an array of underwear, pants, and shirts. So if we type it again, we can see underwear, pants, and shirts in this array. But what should be mentioned is that when you create an array, it's not exactly an array by itself, but it's actually an array object. It's very akin to an object. It actually is an object. But what is an object? Well, very briefly, you can consider an object an amalgamation of related data and functions. We're going to get more into what an object is in a later video, but for now, let's just focus on arrays by itself, array objects. So, this array object has a special function called append, right? First, we'll make an empty array. So we have an empty array right now. And it has a very special function that's built into the array called the append function. So to access these built-in functions that are part of the object, so we have an array object, and it has this built-in function called append, we first type period, and then we type the name of the attribute, which is going to be append. And so this append literally appends items to an array. Item 1. Ta-da. So when we type an array, we see that item 1 has been appended. We can append another item, item 2, array. You can see it right there. So you can do this as many times as you want. You can keep appending whatever you want. Whatever you want. And it'll always append some data. So now you may be wondering, how do we get these individual pieces of data? How do we actually open, drawer number 3? Well, to access individual elements in an array, we must first know what part of the array we want to look at. Just like in our dresser drawer analogy, we need to know what drawer we want to look in. So to access that part of our array, we'll use this syntax. First, we open, or we call the array, and then we type in this bracket, and then the index of the element that we want to find, and then we close the bracket. So in this case, we're actually going to pull out U, right? But you're probably wondering, wait a second, this 1 here, what does that mean? Well, the 1 means that we want to access the element at index number 1. And the index of number 1 is actually the U. You see, in computer programming languages, most computer programming languages, arrays are 0 indexed, meaning that the very first element of an array is element number 0. So this whatever is the first element in the array, and it is at location 0. So it's kind of equivalent to saying a 3-floor house, right? You have a 3-floor house, and the basement, the basement underneath the 2 floors is the first floor. So the basement underneath is floor number 1, right? is floor 0. And then the first floor is, even though it's the first floor, it's actually the second floor in the house, right? So you have floor 0, floor 1, and then floor 2. And that's how, that's kind of how, like, it is with an array. Array element, the first array element is element 0, which is the basement, and then the second element is at index 1, and then the third element is at index 2, because you see, the first element is at index 0, second element is at index 1, and then the third element is in index 2. So if we have that as an example here, house is equal to an array of a basement, first floor, and second floor. Right here. And then if we want the element at index 0, that's the basement. If we want the element at index 1, that's the first floor. And element index 2 is the second floor. So it's just like a house. Okay. Well, that's kind of our introduction to array objects. So, you know, what's the proper way to manipulate an array? Arrays can have, you know, literally hundreds or thousands of elements in there, and you can't really expect a programmer to write each index over and over. Array 0, array 1, array 2. You know, you can't expect a programmer to write that. Over and over and over again. Well, here, this is where the for loop comes into play. Commonly, arrays are used with for loops, and in Python in particular, for loops directly manipulate arrays. So the syntax is for element L in an array, do a command, right? So what this does is it works in a for each sort of way. So for every element inside the array, we assign this element to the variable EL and exposes it to the programmer within the body of the for loop. So it's equivalent to having the program write EL is equal to array 0, and then you do whatever you want, and then it goes through again, and EL is equal to array 1, and then you do whatever you want, and then it goes again, and EL is, so on and so forth, right? So that's what the for L in array does. And remember that these are variable names also, so this for L, this L can be changed to whatever you want. Your array might be a different name, and yeah. So right now we have values, whatever you want that is inside the array. So let's try manipulating it. So we're going to hit enter, and then remember you always have to hit the tab because this is Python, and you always need an extra tab when filling in the body of any kind of function definition. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this element and we're going to print this element, and we're going to add to it the string hello. So for every element inside this array, we're going to print the element plus hello. When we hit this, hit enter again to complete the function. Whatever hello you want. Hello. Remember, the array consists of whatever you want. We took every element inside the array and we added hello, a space and hello to it. We can also have an array of, numbers and integers, 2, 3, 4. And then for every element inside this array of 1, 2, 3, 4, we can add to it 3. So we're going to add 3 to every element, and we're going to get back the values of 4, 5, 6, and 7. Oh, whoopsies. My syntax was incorrect. I did print 1 plus 3. So actually, this illustrates another point, is that if you don't use the, if you actually don't use the variable inside the body of your function, you're not going to do anything with the variable, and it's just going to do whatever you have in the body of the function, however many times, equal to the number of elements you have in an array. So we have 4 elements in this array, so we did this print 1 plus 3 4 times, you can see. But let's complete this example before we move on. L plus 3, and here we are, 4, 5, 6, 7. But harking back onto that earlier point, array is equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 5 elements inside this array. So that means that we're going to do whatever we have in the body of this function. Oops, sorry about the syntax. We're going to do whatever we have in the body of this function 5 times. So we're going to say, this is printed 5 times. There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so now you're starting to kind of understand like the merit of utilizing these arrays, right? You can see how useful they can be for repetitive action. Here's an example where we can do something like accumulating all the values inside this array. So let's say we have a sum is equal to 0, and what we want to do is we want to add all of these values up. So we have sum is equal to 0. For every element inside the array, we're going to make it so that the sum is equal to the sum, which is the previous sum, plus the element. So what it's going to do is it's going to sum up every single one of these elements. And when we hit this enter button, it's finished. We're going to print sum, and sum is equal to 10, which is 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1. You can also call functions within the array. Within the for loop. Remember previously we had defined an add function, I think. Adder function. Nope, I guess we don't have it in this one. So we'll just make it really quickly. Define add. So we're going to take two parameters, and what we're going to do is we're going to return they themselves added together. And then in a for loop, using the same array and a sum equal to 0, we're going to do for element inside the array. Let's add the sum with the elements, and this is going to equal the sum, and then voila, we're going to get 10 back. So you see, you can use functions, you can do a whole bunch of things. It doesn't have to be a single line either, it can be multiple lines. And you can even define the for loops within a function. So let's say add list or add array. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass in an array into this function. We're going to give a sum equal to 0 for element in the array that is passed. We're going to make it so that sum is equal to the sum plus the element. And then we're going to return the sum. So with this array that we have, we're going to use add array, and we're going to get back 10. So now you're starting, I'm sure now you can understand how useful arrays are. So, try out arrays, play around with the for loops and play around with the arrays. One thing that actually should be mentioned is that there's a very simple way for generating long arrays. Like say, for example, you want an array of 100 numbers, but, you don't want to go sitting there and typing each and every one of these, 100 numbers, right? Thankfully, Python has a built-in variable, or a built-in function called the range function. And so this range function is built in, you don't have to import anything. It'll take an integer value, and it'll generate an array up to the number that you input. So we hit here, da-dung. This is the range 10, and it gives us an array of integers that are less than 10. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9. And then it doesn't go up to 10, but this is 10 values. So you can do that for 100 as well. You get 100 right there. So what this means is that you can actually do for element in range 100. You can do something like, this will print 100 times, and will fill the screen. Voila, That's done 100 times. You can scroll up, you can count them if you really want to. I'm sure you don't want to do that. And yeah, that's it. So for some homework, try making a mapping function and see what values you get out of a specific range of values. So for example, here's a basic mapping function. We're going to take an integer x, and then we are going to add 2 to it, and then divide by 3. Just as a complete example, divide by the float 3, and then return z. So for element in a range of values up to 10, we're going to print this map fun with the element as the parameter that is passed. And there we go. We get all the values. So yeah, so try some mapping functions. Maybe you want to try to solve something that way. In any case, that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching.